Hello, my friends. And we're ready to do Phaladipika's 8th chapter. The 8th chapter is all the planets and all the houses, and the ninth chapter is all the planets and all the signs. And this brings up an interesting point, because doesn't that sound like pretty basic stuff? It's kind of basic stuff, but we're on chapter 8 and 9, and we've covered things like amshas, shadbala, yogas. So it brings up a good discussion, which is that usually when you teach something, you teach the basics first and the advanced stuff next. You don't teach a person how to throw a special curve on the ball before you teach them how to hold the ball, or before you introduce them to the ball. And you don't teach a person how to write poetry before they know how to talk. It's just a general principle of teaching. So why is it that in Phaladipika you get chapter 3 telling you how to calculate amshas, and then you get chapter 8 telling you planets and signs? So I thought about that a bit, and the conclusion that I come to is that Montreshwar's concept of what's basic and what's advanced is different than our modern concept in modern astrology circles. When you pick up a modern astrology book, you're pretty much guaranteed to see stuff like planets and signs, planets and houses. I mean, planets, signs, houses, planets and signs, planets and houses. Those would be like the first 5 chapters. Before you hear about what dignity is, how to calculate it, what Shadbala is, what the planet's strength is, how to calculate what aspects are, how to calculate them, what yogas are, what combinations of multiple things in multiple houses, etc. Right? Because we generally think, I hope you guys are listening. Yeah, because we generally think that stuff like planets and houses and planets and signs is a bit simple. And stuff like amshas and shadbalas and aspects are complicated, especially the calculation part. But I realize that Montreshwar must think of it the opposite way around. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. So in other words, in Montreshwar's head, it's actually more complex to use something simple. And it's simpler to do something complicated. In other words, thank you, Bardo. It's simple to calculate things. You just need a calculator. So calculating amshas, calculating shadbalas is actually tedious, but simple. And also, it's relatively simple to just talk about complicated combinations of things. It's not, you don't have to do much work on your own. But to use something like planets and houses effectively, the information is abstract because it's simple. The simple things are abstract. And so to actually use a simple thing in practice requires a lot of finesse. So he's putting the chapter on planets and houses and then the chapter on planets and signs after he discussed yogas, dignity, bala, amshas. And it's not haphazard. He's a careful person. He's writing poems with certain number of syllables per line. I mean, he's taking his time and thinking things out. The reason is that if you really want to use this effectively, you have to bear in mind that this is abstract info that has to be combined with other things. Does that make sense? Do you understand? If you listen to what I said and it doesn't make sense, ask a question about it, please. In other words, what I'm saying is don't think that planets and houses are simple. Even though the information is going to be simple, the concept is simple. To actually use it effectively, you have to also bear in mind all the other things that you've learned so far, which is yogas. So, in other words, what context is this in? Which is Bala, how strong is the planet? Which is dignity, what's the dignity of the planet, etc. I'm not going to tell you something. This is a class where we're studying the Phaladipika, Mr. Gunjan. So I'm not answering random questions. All right. Same thing for Tatiana. Oh, wait, this is a question. In Rashi chart, sun is, this is kind of a relevant question. In Rashi chart, sun is placed in the 6th house, but in Bhava Chalit, sun is placed in 5th house, Libra rising. So this is a simple question also, which could be abstracted into, before we talk about sun in houses, what house system should we use? When you talk about the sun in houses, you're talking about the sun in theoretical houses. Just learn it and stop thinking immediately about how to apply it to your chart. Just try to learn the concept before you learn the practice. Then put the concept into practice. So the sun in houses, sun in these theoretical houses. What house system would Mantreshwar use? He would use the whole sign house system, which is Tatiana calling the Rashi chart, which means where the Rashi or the sign is the house. Bhava Chalit is the dynamic house system. Chalit means dynamic. Bhava means house. It's the dynamic house system, and I don't recommend it. But you can do anything you want. And thank you, Kunjan. It's okay. All right. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at what he says. Chapter 8 is going to have like 4 statements, which will encapsulate each planet, like the sun in each of the 12 houses, and then the moon in each of the 12 houses, about 4 statements for each one. Let's have a look. So what we're going to do on the right, you see I have a little chart up there. We're going to kind of give a overview, whether it was good, bad, or medium for the sun to be in this house. And we'll keep track of it over there on the right. We'll color them red for bad, yellow for medium, and blue for good. So heads up, he's going to follow a very simple theory in how he describes the sun in houses. And it's more important that you learn the theory that's the first layer of simple. The theory is the sun is a malefic planet, so it's not going to do good in soft houses. It's going to do good in hard houses. The sun is a hard planet. It's going to do good in hard houses. So you're going to see that he's going to like the sun in the 3rd house, in the 6th house. And he's going to not like the sun in the 2nd house and the 4th house. And he's going to not like it that much in the 5th either. And he's not going to like it in the 7th. Now you're going to see something interesting about 9, 10, and 11, these houses, which you're going to probably, unless he doesn't agree with any of the other classical astrologers, you're going to see something interesting that comes up with houses 9, 10, and 11. Is that they're almost always good for every planet. So he's going to wind up liking the sun in the 3rd house and the 6th house and 9, 10, and 11 pretty well. 9 has a little bit of a caveat to it, and the rest of them, So remember, that's his basic thing. His basic thing is it's a malefic planet, so it's good in hard houses 3 and 6. It's not good in soft houses 2 and 4. All right, let's take a look at what he says. Alf knew it. All right, so his opening statement is about the sun in the first house. Lagner kelpa kachak kriyala satama krodhi prachandonato mani lochana rukshacha mani lochana rukshacha krishatanu shuro kshamo nigrana spotaksha shashibhe kriye satimira singhe nishandapuman daridyopahato vinastatanayo yanktas tulayam bhavet. So this is all about the sun in the first house. He says thin hair, lazy, angers easily and has pride, is dominant, assertive, strict, and unforgiving. Eyes are not very white and is thin and tall. And then he says if the first house is Aries, then you can expect vision problems. That's super interesting. If it's Cancer, cataract. If it's Leo, night blindness. And if it's Libra, loss of wealth and difficulty with offspring. Okay, let's look at this in a little more detail. So this was the only, in the first house, we'll probably see this repeated with moon, etc. But he's going to give more attention to the first house. So you should carry over the things about this to the other houses, but he doesn't take the time to. For example, it depends what the sign is. But that's what we talked about already. That's why he already discussed the more complicated things first. It, of course, depends what sign it's in and what aspects it has and what amsha it's in, etc., 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 etc. But that's up to you to realize and bear in mind before you actually try to use the information. Okay, so he says thin hair. What's going on with the first house? The first house is Tanu Bhav, which is the body's house, the house of the body. And the sun is Agni, or fire, Pitta. So Pitta is metabolism, heat, and acidity is in the body. So the sun in the first house is going to give a lot of metabolism, acidity, testosterone, and what was the other thing I said? Heat, fire. So one of the effects of that is it damages your hair. When your body has excess heat and acid, metabolism, then the hair follicles suffer. So with the sun in first house, don't expect thick, long-lasting hair. You could theorize then what Mars in the first house is probably similar, and you could take a look at Donald Trump. Thin hair, and then he says lazy. What's going on with that? He says lazy because the sun, so the first is the house of the body, and it's also therefore the house of the way that you behave. So if the sun is in the first house, it signifies behaving like a king or behaving royally. So the idea in Kriyalasa means you don't feel like you are the worker. You feel like other people should be doing the work. And then he says, Tama Krodi Prachanda, money. So they have pride and they get angry easy. Again, the sun is in the first house, then the person's behavior is like a king. So they're going to be money. They're going to have some pride, ego. They're going to be Krodi. They get angry. And dominant. Shuro is dominant. Akshama and Nigrana means they're strict and unforgiving. So they're like a king, they enforce laws. They're not gentle, they're serious, they're strict. Then he says the mani lochana rukshacha. The eyes will get, again, this is just the result of having high metabolism, acidity, and pitta. Not only does it make the hair thin, it will make the eyes dry. And when the eyes are dry, then the whiteness of them suffers. So the white in a person with a dominant sun or sun in the first house, the whiteness will kind of yellow a bit or redden a bit. And thin and tall. You're not going to get fat when you have sun in the first house because the metabolism is high. Now, maybe you have other planets, but I'm just saying this is the abstract info about the sun in the house, about the planets in the houses. Sun in the first house is a thin person because the body has a lot of metabolism. And tall, therefore. Also because sun is imposing. And he says this other stuff is very interesting. If the first house is these particular signs, Aries, Cancer, or Leo, it's going to affect the vision. The reason is that the sun is the eye, because the sun generates light, and light is the basis for seeing things. So the condition of sun in a chart is one of the important things to look at for the condition of the person's eyesight. But it is hard to know why he's saying the sun in Aries would cause vision problems, because the sun is supposed to be good in Aries. But it can be, again, that it's a you're getting too much pitta into the body. As we kind of know in modern medicines, acid is a dangerous thing, which is necessary for life, but the body actually prefers alkalines and keeps the acid at a minimum. And the acids will first things they'll damage is the watery stuff, like the eyes and the hair. So possibly he's saying that if you have the sun in Aries, it's way too much fire in the first house. Like, what's his name? Mr. Trump. He's got Mars in Leo in the first house. And so then again, maybe that's the reason for Leo. He says particularly night blindness. And Cancer, there's a cataract. There's a dot in the eye. Interesting. If it is Cancer, yeah, I don't know. And then Libra kind of makes sense. It's easier to figure out Libra because the sun is fallen or debilitated in Libra. So instead of having these qualities, you would have some of these qualities, but they would be modified. So dominant, assertive, strict, unforgiving, it's not going to be very consistently that way. And the kingship and the royal nature of it, it's not going to be very consistent or reliable that you can be like that. And the metabolism will not actually be quite as strong. All right. So there you see one example of a planet in a house and how he's describing it in the first house. I see there's some talk going on. So that was coming, Sarah. Okay. I'll let you guys talk and I'll keep going. So now he's going to go more quickly with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, so what should we say about this? What I would say about this is, come on. Oh, I never thought about this. It's going to be difficult to select the one I want. There you go. What I would say about this is, it's a mixed bag. it's not really. I guess that's how yellow looks when the filter is applied to it. Sorry. So that means yellow, that kind of grayish color. It sort of has good points to it. It has bad points to it. Kind of depends. Now, let's look at the rest of the houses. Now he says, Vigata Vidya Vinaya Vittam Skalita Vacham Dhanagata. And this means if the sun went to the house called Dana, which is the second house, then he's going to be Vigata Vidya, without uneducated, Vinaya Vittam, without wealth, and Skalita Vacham, can't speak straight, can't speak confidently. So he hates the sun in the second house. So it's a basic simple principle that the sun is a masculine planet, the second is a feminine house. The sun is a hard planet, the second is a soft house, however you want to phrase it. The sun is a malefic, and the second is benefic. So it will mess up the indications of that house. So we're going to have to color this one red. Let's see how it gets handled on screen. Yeah, there you go. And I made that one more yellow. You don't like it. Sorry if you have sun in the second house. No, Amy says that's accurate. Now, he goes on and talks about third house. Sabala Shaurya Shriya Mudaram Svajana Shatrum Sahajaga. So now, if it's Sahajaga, Sahaja is third house. If the sun has gone to the third house, then Sabala, he's strong. Shaurya, he's heroic. Surya is the name of the sun. Shaurya means heroic. Shriya is prosperous. Shriyam Udaram, put it like this. So prosperous also means generous, like magnanimous. And that's very interesting. Subala Surya Shriyam Udaram Svajana Shatrum Sahajaga. Strong, heroic, prosperous, and generous, but is combative with peers. So interesting. So here you have a male planet and a male house. You have a hard planet and a hard house, a malefic planet and a malefic house. And so the result is good because they're on the same page. You see, this is the basic key or puzzle for astrology. This thing, it's not this little part over here, this sign, this house, whatever is bad, etc., whatever you want to call it, and this planet over here is bad, whatever. When the bad and the bad come together, it comes up good because they get on the same page and they work with those bad things well. Similarly, when you have the soft planets, the good planets, the nice planets in the soft, nice, good houses, it works well. But when you mix them up, you get problems. So the generous thing is very, very interesting, actually. And Shriyam also has an implication, too, of being good-looking. Prosperous also means, Shriyam means wealthy, prosperous, good-looking, blessed. So good-looking, generous from the sun. When the sun was in the first house, the person was really strict, unforgiving, dominant. When the sun is in the third house, the person is generous, but strong and heroic, and beautiful, prosperous. What does it tell you? This is, by the way, I mean, we're talking about the sun, which is the very masculine principle. So it's telling you really when masculinity is very strong, the person actually becomes kind, generous, prosperous, beautiful. because of the strength and confidence and heroism, willingness to protect people. That's what heroism means. Willingness to protect people, willingness to risk for people. When it's in the first house, it's not quite so comfortable, so you're just getting like half of it, which is just the tough side. So Sun in the third house gets really, really happy. It gets very, very comfortable, so it doesn't have any negative sense of being overly strict. Strict in all the right ways. But combative with peers. Because third house is for siblings. So it's going to be masculine. So it's going to be competitive. There's going to be always like a lot of competitive drive. Wanting to do something better than other people, etc. Kona, it's always on the money with Kona. Thank you. Now, Sun in the fourth. For some reason, he gives two lines to this one. He talks a little bit more about it. Let's see if he repeats that with the other planets. Janayatimam suridi suryo visuka bandhu kshiti surit pavana suktam nripati seva janaka sampad vyayakaram. So if it goes to Surit Bhava, which is the fourth house, the house of the heart or the house of love, then he has little or very specific happiness, friends, prosperity, and lovers. He is devoted to politics, government, and society instead, and sacrifices family life for this. So let me show you the Sanskrit. The key word is visuk. So visuk is a special word. It's anytime the prefix v is used in Sanskrit, it's going to take a little bit of explaining to translate it into English, because it's a special prefix that we don't have or use in English. And the meaning of the prefix is actually special, unique, different from. Different from is the best way to say it. So visuk means different from happiness. So it has two simultaneous implications. It means unhappiness, or it means a different kind of happiness, a special kind of happiness. And that is what's going on with the Sun in the fourth house. And this is actually Ramchandra and Krishna, really. No, Ramchandra is Sun in 10. This is just Krishna. Sun in 10th, Sun in fourth house. There's a very specific happiness. There's more concern. So anyway, what he's saying is the person is Nirpati Seva and Janaka Sampad Vyaya. He spends his inherited or family, he spends his inherited wealth, or he sacrifices his, Vyaya means to spend or sacrifice. And Janaya Sampad means your inherited wealth or the happiness of family. He spends that on some other goal, which is Nripati Seva, service to the king. So what's going on when you take the Sun and you put it in the fourth house? The fourth is the house of love, Surit, devotion. The Sun is the king. So the Sun in the fourth house means a lot of devotion to a king, a leader, a principal, which will result in sacrificing you. But because it's a very male planet in a very female house, it's going to be an iffy result. So the guy actually does have happiness, but they get it in a different way. They get it by feeling that they're of service to society. They get it by feeling that they're of service to others. And they tend to sacrifice their own happiness, etc., for that. Make sense? So let's see. We have to keep up with our color coding. So we're going to say the third house was green. Oh, you can't make it green because it'll disappear. Let's make it blue. And fourth house, I don't know how you feel. I'm not sure that it should be really red. I think it should be kind of yellowish. Kind of medium. So you see the color coding there so far, how the sun does in the houses? This is interesting. So don't forget, people, like I said in the beginning, this is the 8th chapter. He's gone over a lot of stuff already. The reason why he didn't put the stuff which we think is basic and should be discussed first, the reason why he went over all this other complicated stuff first, is because you need to know that complicated stuff to be able to use this effectively. So you have the sun in, I have sun in 8th house. Somebody else I know has the sun in 10th or something. It doesn't mean straight out of the box these things are going to be interpreted accurately. You have to think about all the other things that we talked about. What are the yogas that the sun is in? What are the aspects that the sun is in? What's the sun the lord of? What's the sun's dignity? What's the sun's strength, etc.? No. If he means, I'm not sure if it's good or bad. Now, proceeding. Now we go to the next text for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th houses. Sukha dhanayus taya hinam sumatim atmantyavigam. This is one of these. Sukha dhanayus taya hinam sumatim atmanyatavigam. Intelligent, but without the happiness of children, wealth, and health. Okay, so it's a trine house. Things can't be all bad. So the one good thing is sumati. The sun in the 5th house. The sun has the ability to make decisions. It has that masculine quality of being clear-cut and decisive. And the 5th house is it represents the part of our being that makes decisions. So having the sun in the 5th house indicates a person has an ability to make a clear decision and to see things clearly. And that's called sumati, or intelligent. After all, this is the house of intelligence. But the other stuff about the 5th house, which is more feminine, like expressiveness, creativity, fertility, having babies, making children, doesn't fare well with the masculine sun being there. So again, it's going to affect the health. It's because the acidics of the sun is impacting on an area which is supposed to be very alkaline. So he says intelligent, but without the happiness of children, wealth, and health. Then for the 6th house, he says, Pratitam urvipatim arishta suguna sampad vijayagam. Let's color code the 5th. And let me see if you guys are asking any questions. I would color code kind of similar to the 4th, like an orangey color, kind of almost yellow. Now 6, though, 6 is off the charts. He loves it. And like I'm saying, it's a simple principle that he's following. Take a hard planet, put it in a hard house. Take a male planet, put it in a male house. Take a malefic planet, put it in a malefic house. Good stuff will happen. So we don't usually think, 3rd house is great. I can't wait to see what the sun's going to be like in the 3rd house. Or 6th house is an awesome house. I bet you the sun's going to be great there. The 6th house is a good house for tough planets. So he says, Pratitam urvipatim arishta vijaya. He says arishta vijaya. This is the main thing. That this person with the sun in the fifth house, if it's in vijaya, which is actually the nature of the name of the sixth house as well, he can overcome his obstacles. So the sixth house is the place for solving problems. The fifth is the place for making decisions. The sixth is the place for solving problems, dealing with difficulties. Is the sixth house. Dealing with confrontations, dealing with enemies, dealing with things that are standing in your way. The sun is a great planet for doing that because it's overpowering, it's powerful, it's relentless. So sun in sixth house indicates a person that is good at just bearing down on the enemy. And we're bearing down on the task, the chore, getting it done, not backing down, not wimping out, not tiring out. So urvipatim, they can become king. They become kings. Sun in sixth house, kingly. Why? Because arishtam vijayam, they conquer oppositions, and hence they are pratitam, famous, saguna, qualified, and sampat, wealthy. So saguna is very interesting. It was like the sun in the third house was generous and good looking. You don't expect this from the third house. Similarly, sun in the sixth house, saguna, they have good qualities. Good qualities means honesty. Good qualities means trustability, faithfulness. Good qualities means, yeah, those are the basic ones. Humility, even. Deference, respect. Why would that come from the sixth house? The sixth house is a tough guy's place. Because when you take toughness and you put it in the right place, you don't have problems with the toughness. The toughness works well. When the toughness works well, the side effect is the soft, good qualities also can prosper. They don't get trampled on. So that is very interesting. Pam, what if the sun is in the fifth sign but with the sixth house cusp? Should we look at the sixth? Basically speaking, if the sun is in the fifth sign from the ascendant, it's in the fifth house as far as the whole house system goes. It's up to you to decide what house system you want to use. But if you want my opinion on it, it's the whole sign house system is the one that I use. Now, let's keep going. Sun in sixth, now the sun in seventh. Uh-oh. This is not good. Nipa virudam kutanumaste tvagamadaram yavamatam. So, sun in seventh house is Nripa Viruddha, which means he's at odds with authorities. He's not going to like the sun in the seventh house at all. Why? Well, the seventh house is the west. And everything that the seventh house represents has to do with the fact that the sun disappears there. So the sun is not going to be vibing with anything about the seventh house. The seventh house is antithetical to the sun. So one of the things that the sun represents is authorities, kings, governments. The sun is in the seventh house. The person is anti-establishmentarianist, anti-hierarchy, doesn't cooperate with rulers, doesn't cooperate with rules. That's one thing. Kutanum. Tanu is body, ku means difficult. So it can mean the body doesn't look great, or it can mean the body doesn't work right, or it can mean both, or it can mean the body gets injured. Why is that? It's mostly because the seventh house affects how you look, how you're interacting with other people. It also probably, as the seventh house will affect, probably you should write this into your checklist. One of the things about the seventh house is that it's opposite to the first. So one of the things about a planet in the seventh house is that the effect that it's having in the seventh is going to influence the first house, because since it's opposite the first house, the planet there can aspect the ascendant. And so since this ascendant has to do with the body, a planet in the seventh house can have a effect on the body, the physical appearance. But keep it on your mind there that you want to check to see how much of the aspect is actually there. Is it in alignment or out of alignment? Is it actually 180 degrees apart? Is it less than 180 degrees apart? Because if it's less than 180 degrees apart, it's a lot less of an aspect. If it's more, then it's still pretty much an aspect. All right, so that's Kutanum. Separated from spouse, Agamadaram. That's kind of obvious too, right? Seventh house is for spouse, marriage, etc. The sun is very male. Male is not the marry print, male is the independence. I standing on my own 2 feet, going my own way, blazing my own path. So it doesn't get along well with the concept of cooperation, partnership, and marriage. The sun in the seventh house puts a little bit of a damper on that, on marriage. What does it say? Agama Dharam means this maybe divorce, or maybe unmarriage, no marriage, or maybe agama. It takes a while. Agama. It takes a while for the spouse to show up. And if you want to know why, it's because you're not really that interested in it. When I used to do one-to-one consultations with people often, I realized that a lot of people who came for consultations about marriage, they didn't want to get married. Deep down in their heart, they didn't want to get married. But they had some kind of a script in their head that they're supposed to get married. And that's the theme of the sun in the seventh house. Really, I don't really feel like I want my freedom to be limited. And that is what actually causes the divorce, or causes the separation, or causes the delay. And there's one more thing, which is avamatam, which is not well respected. So the sun's placement is very important to show how well known you are, how respected you are. If it's in the seventh house, then it's setting, but not very well respected. Any questions? We'll catch up with the color coding. And this is a square red. And hate me if you want, but I'm going to say this is a red. 4, man. 4 almost should be red too. I think the trick with why 4 isn't red is because it's Visuk. So it is likely that they find their happiness, but it's just not. They will substitute other things for the family. All right. Any questions about Sun and 7? Or any of these? Pedro asks if Sun is strong by sign in the 7th, etc., etc. That's what I'm telling you. The reason why this is chapter 8 and not chapter 2 or 3 where you would expect it is because he wants you to know all the things that you should know first. That it makes a difference what sign the planet's in, that it makes a difference what aspects the planet has. It makes a difference, etc., etc., etc. What you have to do, what you have to learn really, if you want to learn astrology, is think of it like painting a picture. And when you crack open a book or something and the person says, Sun in the seventh house is XYZ, think of that as somebody's handing you a tube of paint. If you're a preschool or a kindergarten kid, you're going to take that tube of paint, squirt it onto a brush, and start painting. And your painting is going to look like a preschool kid's painting. Not to say it's not cute, but it's certainly not realistic or sophisticated. But if you know what you're doing with paints, then you're going to take that tube and you're going to take your other tubes that you also got from that chart, and you're going to figure out how they mix together. And then when you paint with those colors, you get something that actually looks lifelike. Bardo, is agama connected to agami karma? It's actually, the difference is in the A, the first A. Agama means coming, agama means going, gama means to move. Agama means something that's coming. Agama means something that's coming. Agama means something that's going. Now, let's see what's next. Sun in 8th. Yikes. Hata danayu suridha marko vigata drishi nidanaga. So if the sun is in the 8th house, he loses wealth and friends because of lacking attachment or significant favor for them. This is fascinating. So the sun goes into the 8th house. Then what happens is the person's ego, identity, the spotlight in their life, the thing that is drawing their attention, is in the 8th house. So the 8th house is not practical in the least. The 8th house is invisible. If you want to know where the 8th house is, go outside shortly before sunset. Shortly before sunset, like an hour, a half hour before sunset. And you'll kind of realize you need sunglasses, because it's very difficult to see at that time. And hence, the symbolism of the 8th house is things which are difficult to see. And also, the sun is falling. It's falling into the west when it's in the 8th house. And so it's leaning towards the invisible. It's dealing with the invisible. So that's the idea that he's putting across here with the sun in the 8th house, is that the person lacks attachment for conventional things. And the implication is that they have attachment or interest in hidden, unusual, unseen things, mystical things, whatever. So they hata danayu suridam. I didn't translate ayu. Health. They will lose the health, wealth, and friends because they don't care enough about their health, wealth, and friends. They don't, in other words, they don't care about their material stuff enough. They don't take good care of it, so they wind up losing it. And so this one, it's going to be red, isn't it? So look, it's not that he's saying sun in difficult houses is good. It's not 3, 6, 8, 12, sun is good there. It's some kind of weird thing. It's 3 and 6. It's the masculine houses. Sun is good there. Let's code that one, color code that one. I am just going to be simple and say this is red. Although I guess if I'm doing this, I should make 4 red too. I'm going to go ahead and do that. The reason is 8 is very similar with 4. You can see they're in this trine actually. But 8 is very similar with 4 in the sense that the person with the sun in the 4th house has their happiness from their dedication to some kind of bigger version of the 8th house thing, of the 4th house things. This is a similar thing with the sun in the 8th house. They find their happiness in some kind of a unusual version of wealth, health, etc. But I'm just going to be simple and say, well, you don't have health, wealth, and friends from either position, so we'll color them all red. Just to illustrate how another reason why he puts this as the 8th chapter. Well, I can see so many people saying my sun is X house, and I just wonder, is it really? I wonder how you calculated it. So it's not, it is actually quite wise the way that he laid out his chapters. Although I probably wouldn't, I don't do it that way myself. But it is wise how he does it. He gives the complicated, difficult, calculative stuff first. Now, sun in 9th. What's he going to say here? Vijanakorke Sauta Bandhus Tapasi Deva Dvijamana. The sun is in the 9th house, loss of father, but has children and respects traditions and educators. So it could actually just be loss of parents and loss of family. But most likely father, especially because the sun is the sun. So the thing is, the 9th house is the house of the people who bring you up, the people who raise you. So if you put the sun in the 9th house, there's some bad effect on that, on the family. The family aspect of the 9th house suffers, but the rest of it is good. So do you see how he would reason that out? His sensibility would be the part of the 9th house that has to do with soft things, feminine things, doesn't prosper if the sun is there. What was that? That's family. But the part of the 9th, but only that part of the 9th house suffers. So there's some kind of loss of family, probably loss of father. But they do have children. They are able to have children. And they respect the people that brought them up. So they respect traditions and educators. They respect probably religions as well, those kind of traditions. So I would say this is a yellow. Kind of on the good side of a yellow. It's kind of interesting the sun is not doing really that great in most of the houses. Doing better in 3 and 6. Let's see if he's just kind of a pessimist, or maybe he focuses more on the difficulties. Or let's see what the other houses are, how he describes the other planets. As we go through this text in the coming weeks, but for now, I would say he's just using this simple thing. The sun is one of the tougher planets, the masculine planets. It's not going to do great in most of the houses. which rely on cooperation and stuff like that. But there's certain houses where it's going to do very good. But now we're going to see the sun get a little turnaround. And here's the turnaround. Sasutayana stutimati shribala yasha kekštipati. So if the sun goes to the 10th house, then he has children. Sasuta. He has yana, which is vehicles. He has stuti, praise, mati, intellect, wealth, shri, power, bala, and good reputation. Yasha, like Kshtipati, like a king. So this is really the idealist of all the places for the sun, the 10th house. Because what is the 10th house? It's the noon area of sky. 10th house is the noon area of sky, then the sun is hottest and strongest at noon. So the sun will naturally, everything that the 10th house signifies has to do with the fact that it's the noon sky. So the sun will get along good with all those significations. Visibility, impact, dominance. That's what the 10th house signifies. So you get a lot of visibility, you get a lot of impact, you get a lot of dominance. Children, because the sun is functioning well here, it's the same thing like you're getting beauty from the sun in the 3rd, or you're getting refinement from the sun in the 6th. You can get children from the sun in the 10th, because the acidics are where they belong. The acidics principles, the fire, the pitta is where it belongs. It's not causing problems, so the person doesn't become infertile. Intellect is also interesting. Again, sun's version of intellect will always be in clarity and decisiveness. So, bam, we get a very nice blue for this 10th house. I think just to be consistent, we'll keep it the same color. And now, sun in the 11th. Bhagavaterke Bahu Danayur Vigata Shoko Janapati. He's wealthy, long-lived, without sorrow, and followed by people. So the 11th house is super important for popularity. The sun is kingly. So the sun in the 11th house can really give a lot of popularity, fame, celebrity, etc. A lot of celebrities have the sun in the 11th house. And that's what is meant by Janapati, followed by people. You got the Shoka, the 11th house also is Upachaya, so it does good with masculine planets because it's a takey place. The 11th house is kind of a greedy place. And masculine malefic planets are takey. They're not givey. So it's a good match to put a malefic planet in an Upachaya in a takey house. So good things happen. You get wealth, for example. And you get long life, good health, and you get happiness. So this also gets blue. So the sun recovered a bit here. Just like that presidential election. It ain't over till it's over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So far there's 4 good ones for the sun. 1, 2, 3, 4 bad ones. And 3 mediocre. 12th. One of the interesting things you'll be able to see about the 12th is nobody really does so great here in the 12th. So that's what I'm saying. 9, 10, and 11, you're basically going to see, unless I'm completely wrong about, unless he's completely not going to follow the other traditional descriptions of planets and houses, you'll find out that 9, 10, and 11 are good for anybody. And 8 and 12 are kind of not good for anybody. So that covers all the above ground houses. And then the underground houses, you find that the soft houses, 2, 4, and 5, and 7, they go good with the soft planets, and the hard planets, 3 and 6, they go good with the hard The hard houses go with the hard planets. So with 12, Pitur Amitram Vikala Netro Vidanaputro Vyagate. He argues with the father. This also means arguing with authority in general. Has weak eyes and is without wealth or offspring. That's the full picture of the sun and houses. Wonder if there's any questions. There's so much going on. That it's hard. See if there's any questions. But yeah, I think there's no questions. Everybody just enjoyed talking with each other or talking in general. This is what we have to look forward to for the next several weeks. Okay, so I'll try to make it so that we can do one planet in all the houses each week. So that's at least another 6 weeks. And then after that is chapter 9, which is going to be the same thing for the signs. It's going to be like this for the next couple of months. So I hope you're looking forward to that. D9 is, like I said, like you need to look at, that's why he put chapter 3 before chapter 8. That's why I talked about this. And you can go back and look at our previous streams that are on my YouTube channel. The subdivisional charts are subcharts. So it's the 12th house of a Navamsha is the 12th house. It symbolizes the same things. So if the sun is in the 12th house and in a Navamsha, it symbolizes the same thing as the sun in the 12th house of the main chart, but the Navamsha is a subchart, not the main chart. You just have to bear in mind the relationship between the subchart and the main chart is the subchart modifies the main chart. All right, guys. Netra means eyes. Kate. Vikala Netra means weak eyes. Hey, April. I answered you there already, sir. All right, guys. Peace out.